A man who has bought silver from ordinary people for 11 years just watched something he says he has never seen before. And it happened in the same week. Silver touched a 2-month high. He didn't see buyers lining up. He saw sellers. Longtime stackers, the people who never sell, walking through his door and asking for cash instead of coins. And before this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why, and why it might mean something very different than you think. If you're interested in money, investing, gold, silver, and protecting your financial future, subscribe to Money Insights and like this video, because every week we break down the biggest financial stories in simple English. Here's why this matters. Even if you've never bought a single ounce of silver in your life, silver isn't just a shiny metal collector's trade back and forth. It's wired into your phone, your car, your solar panels, and the machines that keep hospitals running. When the people who hoard it start dumping it, that's not just a story about coin shops. It's a signal about what regular people believe is coming next, for prices, for the dollar, and for their own savings. And what's happening right now doesn't match the story most people are being told. So let's start with the number that got everyone's attention in the first place. On January 29th of this year, silver did something it had never done in recorded history. It touched 121.67 an ounce, not a typo. Silver, the metal people used to buy for a few dollars a coin, briefly traded above $120. For context, the previous nominal record, set back in 1980 during the infamous Hunt Brothers episode, was $49.45. Silver didn't just beat that record, it doubled it and kept climbing. To understand why that number matters so much, you have to go back to 1980. Two brothers named Hunt spent close to a decade quietly buying up as much physical silver as they could find, trying to corner the entire market. For a moment, they nearly succeeded, and silver spiked to $49.45 an ounce, a number that became legend in the stacking world for the next 45 years. Adjusted for inflation, that 1980 peak would be worth somewhere around $190 to $200 an ounce in today's dollars. For nearly half a century, that inflation-adjusted ceiling sat there like an old ghost story stackers would repeat to each other. This January, silver finally walked past the nominal version of that ghost. But here's where everything changes. Silver didn't stay at $121. It didn't even stay above $100. Over the following weeks, as geopolitical tension eased and speculative money that had piled in during the run-up started looking for the exits, silver collapsed. By late March, it had fallen all the way to around $61 an ounce, nearly cut in half from its January peak in less than 60 days. That is one of the fastest, deepest corrections silver has experienced in modern trading history. And the strangest part of that crash is what didn't cause it. You might expect a 50% collapse to be triggered by some kind of good economic news or a sudden silver surplus. It wasn't. It happened during a period of real geopolitical tension in the Middle East, exactly the kind of environment that, historically, sends investors running toward precious metals, not away from them. Instead, silver did the opposite of what the textbook says a safe haven asset is supposed to do. That contradiction alone should tell you this wasn't a story about fear of war. It was a story about a market that had gotten dangerously overcrowded with short-term speculation and needed the excess wrung out of it. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about. After that crash, silver didn't keep falling. It stabilized, and by August, it had climbed back into the high 60s and even brushed $70 an ounce, up somewhere around 77 to 80% compared to a year earlier. So if you're only looking at the headline number today, silver looks strong. Silver looks like a metal still in a historic bull run, which makes what's happening at the counter of dealers across the country even more confusing, because if silver is still up nearly 80% year over year, why would longtime stackers, the exact people who are supposed to hold through volatility, suddenly be lining up to sell? Think about who actually stacks silver. It's rarely hedge funds. It's retirees trying to protect a fixed income from inflation. It's young couples putting a little aside every payday instead of a stock they don't understand. It's factory workers who watched their grocery bills climb faster than their paychecks and decided physical metal felt safer than a bank account. These are people who, by definition, are supposed to be the last ones to sell. Watching them sell now is like watching the calmest person in the room suddenly bolt for the exit. Inside the stacking community itself, there's an entire culture built around never selling. People measure progress in ounces owned, not dollars gained. The whole philosophy is dollar cost averaging, buying a little on a schedule, regardless of price, and letting decades do the work. A stacker who buys 10 ounces a month for 5 years ends up with 600 ounces no matter what the price did along the way. That's the pitch. That's the discipline the entire community prides itself on, which is exactly why a wave of that same community suddenly selling feels less like a market move and more like a culture breaking its own rules in public. So the investigation starts with a simple question. What do these stackers actually know, or think they know, that's pushing them to sell into what still looks, on paper, like a winning trade? The first clue is hiding in plain sight, in a part of the silver market most casual investors never look at closely. The gap between what you pay a dealer to buy silver and what that same dealer pays you to sell it back. This is called the buyback spread. And in 2026, that spread has widened in a way that's catching a lot of stackers off guard. Here's what that looks like in real terms. A 1-ounce silver coin might sell to you for 7 to 20% above the spot price, the live trading price you see on a chart. But when you turn around and try to sell that same coin back, some dealers are only offering 5 to 8% below spot. That means the round trip, buying and then selling, can cost a stacker a meaningful chunk of their gain before they even factor in whether the price moved at all. And it gets more complicated for anything that isn't a mint condition government coin. Generic bars, older bars, and scrap silver often get treated differently because dealers have to pay refining fees, assaying costs, and shipping and insurance to move that metal to a central refinery before it can be resold. In 2026, those logistics and refining costs have climbed by roughly 18% compared to the year before. That cost doesn't disappear. It gets passed straight into a lower buyback price for the person selling. Almost nobody noticed this detail when silver was setting records back in January. When the price is exploding upward, spreads feel like a minor annoyance. But once the price started sliding from that January peak, that same spread turned into something else entirely, a trap. Stackers who bought near the top at $110 or $115 an ounce watched the spot price fall to $61, and when they went to sell, they weren't just selling at a lower spot price. They were selling into a wider spread on top of that lower price. For some of them, the math on paper looked like a loss, even though silver, as an asset, was still worth vastly more than what they originally paid years earlier. That's the first hidden layer, but it doesn't fully explain why the selling has continued even as prices recovered into the high 60s by August. For that, we have to look somewhere most retail investors never check, the vaults themselves. There's a second, quieter clue sitting in the ETF data. Between mid-May and mid-June alone, silver-backed exchange-traded funds saw roughly 13 million ounces of holdings walk out the door. Some analysts describe that as opportunistic profit-taking rather than a sign of collapsing confidence in silver long-term. Investors who bought lower watched the metal recover off its March lows and simply decided to lock in a win. But when ETF investors and physical stackers are both trimming positions in the same stretch of months, it stops looking like a coincidence and starts looking like a mood shared across very different corners of the same market. COMEX, the exchange in New York where the global silver price is effectively set through futures contracts, keeps its warehouse inventory public. And what that inventory shows is one of the strangest silver stories of the decade. Every ounce of silver sitting in a COMEX-approved warehouse falls into one of two categories. Registered. Silver is available to be delivered against a futures contract right now. Or eligible silver meets the quality standard but isn't currently offered for delivery. As of late August, COMEX vaults held roughly 338 million ounces combined, but only about 99 million of those ounces were registered and actually available for delivery. Now here's the number that should stop you. In January of this year, in a single 7-day stretch, more than 33 million ounces of silver were physically withdrawn from COMEX registered inventory. That's roughly a quarter of the entire deliverable pool gone in 1 week. And unlike previous drawdowns in silver's history, in 1980 and 2011, even during the 2020 pandemic disruptions, this decline never fully reversed. Registered inventory going into the following delivery cycles was already smaller than it had been before January's drawdown even started. History tells a very different story than the one most people assume. Silver isn't just going through a speculative bubble that popped in March. According to the Silver Institute's 2026 market survey, this year marks the 6th consecutive year that the world has consumed more silver than it has mined and recycled combined, with this year's shortfall estimated at more than 46 million ounces. Solar panels, electric vehicles, and industrial electronics all quietly eat into the same physical pool of silver that stackers and dealers are fighting over. That demand doesn't care what the spot price does day to day, it just keeps consuming. Almost nobody connects this next piece to the stacker story either, but it belongs here. Halfway around the world, in Shanghai, silver has been trading at a noticeable premium above Western prices for months, and Chinese vault inventories have fallen sharply over the same period the COMEX numbers were dropping. Down more than 40% in just a few months, according to exchange data. When two of the largest silver storage systems on Earth are both draining at the same time, from two completely different customer bases on two different sides of the planet, that's not noise. That's a genuine global scramble for physical metal happening quietly underneath a retail selling panic on the surface. There's also the gold-silver ratio to consider, the simple math of how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold. For most of history, that ratio sat somewhere between 50 and 80. When it swings to extremes in either direction, stackers watch it closely, because a stretched ratio has historically been a signal that one metal is unusually cheap or unusually expensive relative to the other. Every swing in that ratio over the past year has added one more voice to the argument stackers are having with themselves and each other about whether to hold, sell, or rotate. And underneath all of it sits a number few casual investors ever hear about: the coverage ratio, essentially a measure of how much registered deliverable silver actually exists compared to the paper contracts betting on it. Recent readings put that ratio under 17%, meaning paper claims on silver outnumber the physical metal actually sitting in the vault by roughly 6-1. That gap is exactly why a small shift in delivery demand can move the physical market so much harder than the paper price initially suggests. So now you have two completely different forces pulling on the same market at the same time. On one side, retail stackers, spooked by a violent 50% correction, squeezed by wider buyback spreads, and unsettled by a Federal Reserve that's about to make its most closely watched decision of the year, are selling. On the other side, industrial buyers and the physical supply chain itself are still short of silver year after year, with no clear end in sight. Which brings us to a piece of timing that almost nobody connects to the silver market, but should. This week, new Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh delivers his very first major keynote address at the Jackson Hole Symposium, the same closely watched gathering of central bankers that has moved markets for decades. Warsh took over from Jerome Powell earlier this year, and traders still don't fully know his communication style. Right now, markets are pricing something close to a 1 in 3 chance of a rate move in September, with inflation still sitting stubbornly above the Fed's target. A hawkish tone from Warsh could strengthen the dollar and pressure precious metals lower in the short term. A more cautious, uncertain tone could send nervous money right back into gold and silver. Almost nobody stacking silver in their basement is thinking about Federal Reserve communication strategy, but every single one of them is exposed to what happens in the minutes after that speech, whether they realize it or not. Here's why the timing is so unusual. This isn't a routine Fed appearance. It's Warsh's very first keynote since taking over from Jerome Powell, and traders openly admit they still don't fully understand how he communicates under pressure. After his most recent policy meeting, he offered almost no forward guidance at all, which only built more anticipation for this speech instead of less. Inflation has stayed above the Fed's target for years. Running long-term Treasury yields have climbed toward multi-decade highs, and the committee itself has shown open disagreement about which direction to move next. Whenever that much uncertainty piles up around a single speech, precious metals tend to feel the aftershock first, because gold and silver are two of the fastest ways global money expresses a change of mind about the dollar and about interest rates. For someone who has never bought an ounce of silver in their life, none of this may feel personal yet. But the same forces are quietly shaping the interest rate on their savings account, the return on their retirement contributions, and the price tag on anything imported into their home. Silver just happens to be one of the more visible, more emotional ways that story gets told. Because, unlike a bond yield, you can actually hold silver in your hand. Now here's the part most people miss entirely. Not every stacker is actually selling. Dealers who've spoken publicly about this trend describe something closer to a split. Some stackers panicking and liquidating after the correction, while others are treating the pullback from January's record as exactly the kind of buying opportunity they'd been waiting years for. It's not one unified crowd stampeding in the same direction. It's two very different mindsets colliding inside the same market, at the same counters, in the same week. So, which group is right? Nobody can promise you an answer, and anyone who guarantees you one is selling something. But history gives us a pattern worth sitting with. In both 1980 and 2011, silver spiked to a nominal high, crashed hard, and then took years to fully resolve which direction it would ultimately go. What made this cycle different is the scale of the physical deficit sitting underneath the price action. A shortage that, unlike a purely speculative frenzy, doesn't resolve itself just because scared money exits the market. Here's why this actually matters to you, even if you'll never buy a single silver coin. If industrial demand keeps outpacing mine supply for a 7th, 8th, 9th straight year, the cost of that scarcity eventually shows up somewhere. In the price of solar installations, in electronics, in anything built with a silver component. Retirees watching their fixed income get squeezed by inflation. Young professionals trying to figure out where to put their first few $100s of savings, and factory workers whose own industry may depend on this exact metal, are all standing closer to this story than they probably realize. Picture a young couple who started stacking 2 years ago, putting aside $40 from every paycheck instead of ordering takeout. They watched their small pile of coins swell in value as silver climbed toward that January record, felt genuinely proud of the discipline it took to get there, and then watched the same pile lose nearly half its paper value in a matter of weeks. Nobody explains to a couple like that what a coverage ratio is, or what COMEX registered inventory means. All they see is a number falling and a wider gap between what the dealer will pay them and what they originally paid the dealer. Fear, in that moment, isn't irrational. It's what happens when a system nobody explained to you suddenly behaves in a way you weren't prepared for. And there's a reality check worth being honest about. Silver is famously volatile. Some estimates put its annualized swings around 30 to 40%, which is dramatically higher than something like gold. That volatility is exactly why disciplined stackers talk about buying on a schedule instead of chasing headlines, and why panic selling into a temporary dip has historically been one of the most common ways ordinary investors lock in a loss that a few more months of patience might have avoided. None of this is a guarantee silver goes higher from here. It's a reminder that the loudest emotion in the room, whether that's euphoria at 121 or fear at $61, is rarely the most useful signal. This tiny detail changes everything about how you should read this story. The panic selling you're hearing dealers describe isn't proof that silver's bull run is over. It's proof that most retail stackers experience price the way anyone experiences a roller coaster, reacting to the drop in their stomach, not the data underneath them. Meanwhile, the actual physical market, the vaults, the delivery numbers, the 6th straight year of consumption outrunning supply, hasn't changed its underlying story at all. So back to the original question. Why are stackers dumping silver right now, according to the dealers watching it happen in real time? It isn't because silver failed. It's because silver did something almost no asset does. It moved so far, so fast in both directions, that it broke the emotional discipline of people who had held through years of quieter gains. The correction from $121 to $61 shook confidence. The widening buyback spreads punished anyone who needed to sell quickly. And a nervous, uncertain moment for the Federal Reserve arrived at exactly the wrong time to steady anyone's hand. None of that erases the deficit sitting in COMEX's own warehouse data. None of it erases 6 straight years of the world using more silver than it produces. What it does show is something worth remembering about every market you'll ever watch. The metal didn't change. The story underneath it barely moved. What changed was how people felt about holding on in the middle of the loudest, fastest price swing silver has seen in over 40 years. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial insights are coming next.